Welcome to the Sisterhood Collective podcast, where we empower women to break barriers, overcome limiting beliefs, and achieve true success. I'm your host, Laurie Drummond, entrepreneur and founder of 5 successful businesses. Join me as I share proven strategies, interview inspirational leaders, and provide behind-the-scenes insights to help you level up in your business, career, and in life. Because together, we can get further faster. Okay, let's dive in. Welcome to today's podcast. I'm Laurie, and I have a very special guest with us today. She's built an incredible brand, which is infamously known as the Yacht Stew. After years of working on super yachts, climbing the ranks from day work to chief stew, she embarked on an entrepreneurial journey. She founded the Yacht Stew Academy and TYS Recruiting, helping shape the future of the yachting industry. Please join me in welcoming the inspiring Gemma Hulbert. So thank you so much for coming and joining me today, Gemma. So firstly, I wanted to dive kind of straight in and just start by asking you, what got you into the world of yachting? Can you share a bit about this journey?
For sure. Well, firstly, thank you for having me. This is really exciting. Gosh, it feels like years and years ago now, probably because it was. I was at university for event management and hospitality. I really wanted to continue my line of work. At the time, I was a wedding planner and loved it. And somebody in my class was an ex-yachty and just kept talking about all these events that she planned on board. And at some point, the conversation came to it where she just said, you're young, you're only 18, break up with your boyfriend, get on a flight and go to Florida and see what happens. And I did just that. I didn't have the money to necessarily pay off my student loans at the time when we graduated, and it just financially made the most sense. And traveling the world, being paid to do that, I was sold all the glam, had zero idea what the job entailed, but was sold, I would say, the perks of the role. And I wrote my final exam. My best friend who was at uni with me, she actually joined yachting with me, so we went down at the same time, and we wrote our final exam when we were on a plane 2 days later down to Florida.
Did you guys end up on the same yacht together?
No, we did our first day of day work together, which perhaps should have been a sign of years to come of seasickness, because I was horrendously ill. It was this little 70-foot vessel doing a few day charters. It was a tough time, but we persevered, and that was the only time we worked together, probably for the best, probably for the sake of our friendship. Thank goodness that was the only time we worked together. But yeah, that was it, just that few days. And then after that, we went our separate ways onto different boats, and she wanted to do 4 or 5 years and did, I think, 9 months. I wanted to do 6 months and did almost a decade. So 2 different journeys.
I kind of love the fact that when you're 18, you're a little bit get more fearless, I suppose, to say, you know what, like let's do this. But also you had your bestie to go and do something different with, which I think that would give me the courage to go and do something completely different as well, versus now in my middle age, probably. It's a little bit harder to make these bigger jumps and changes, which, to be fair, a lot of the girls in the sisterhood and many of our listeners is something that they fear, is changing careers at this point in their life. So it doesn't matter what age you are. The fact that you actually did it because it was such a huge thing, I think that is just incredible. Here's a question for you then. What were some of your initial impressions and experiences when you first started? Other than the seasickness, which I get really, really bad seasickness as well. So I'm sitting here thinking, how the hell did she keep going?
Delusion for sure. No, I think initially it was a huge transitional period, right? I'm 18. I had just lived at my parents' house. I grew up in a really sheltered Christian family home. And I fly to Florida, and suddenly I'm living in this house with 16 people from the ages of like 18 to 35. And it was this crazy, I'm party central. I wake up one day and a scooter was in my, like one of those Vespas was in our bedroom. I mean, it was wild. So straight off the bat, my eyes were opened to a world outside of this little bubble that I had grown up in. And immediately I had to say to myself, if this is going to work, you cannot get involved in any of this, because everybody here is having the time of their lives. Yes, but they're partying and they're, they're known and they have a bit of a reputation. We go to all these events. So that was something my best friend and I said to each other is we're going to go to the events and the networking, and we're just going to go together and we're going to connect, but we're just going to be ourselves. It also helped that I was 18 and couldn't legally drink in the States. So at all the events and stuff, I couldn't drink anyways. Not that I would have, but I think for me, it was really important to stay true to who I was, but like keep it really professional. Because for me, it was a professional transition into a new career. It wasn't what many, I think, associate with a gap year. That was kind of the start. And then I went on board and I realized very quickly how underprepared I was for this entire job. I had never ironed before, like truly never ironed. Like my mom ironed here and there, I guess, in my dad's shirts, but it wasn't really, we didn't grow up in a household where it was like ironing every day or, any of that. And I was a very messy teenager, like coat hangers in my bed because I wouldn't put my clothes away. And so going into this yachting environment literally changed my life very fast. Suddenly I had to learn what the heck stain treating was. I didn't even know that was a thing. I just thought if something was dirty, you washed it, it came out clean. So that, I think the amount of knowledge and like product knowledge that you need to have to be successful in that role is huge. Not something I anticipated. But one thing I immediately gravitated towards was the guest client relations side, where your job and your role is to ensure that they have the best time on board, the best week, and learning to anticipate their needs before they even know what they are, so you can have things ready in the pantry and things like that. So that side I found relatively easy. The housekeeping laundry side was definitely an eye-opening experience for sure.
It reminds me, as soon as you say that, I think back to when I joined the army and I was 17. And I think Lauren and I were talking just the other day. She's like, yachting's just a glamorous military. It's like a glamorous army because, I mean, I did washing and stuff because I had a military father as well. So I was, kept in line right from the start. But, we got taught how to iron there and do our own washing, and we were held accountable. And there's all these, professionalism, but also these life skills that you're talking about, which is kind of a really important thing to have no matter what industry you're going into. So you're actually learning a lot right from the start.
Definitely. And I think as well, because you're doing it with a group of women, it's who are really supportive. I mean, obviously you have bad boats and bad leadership here and there, but that just made it fun because you wanted to learn. And we would, have prank weeks on board where we would be pranked with weird and gross stains, but they're actually like food. And, the chief stew made it fun where she would send random things into the laundry and we'd have to figure out what it was and stain treat it. And I think it's just a mindset thing as well. You could sit there going, I can't believe I'm stuck in this tiny room with a little window where I can't really see anything, cleaning and, doing 20 people's laundry. Or it's like, I'm going to master stain treating today. And then tomorrow I'm going to learn how to do this. It's definitely a mindset thing because it's not the most glamorous of work straight off the bat when you're learning all of that.
Yeah, there's a combo there. People sell it to you like it's a glamorous job, but the reality is there's some nastiness and yuckiness that goes on. Tell me what's one of the worst things you had to do from a not so glamorous perspective on board a boat?
Oh, I think the worst things are probably things I signed NDAs for, so probably best I don't share. I mean, and Lauren knows this. So for anyone that doesn't know, Lauren was my chief stew, my second chief stew in the industry. She taught me the foundations of everything that I knew moving forward. And on that boat, it was a bit of a situation. There was a lot of feces on board that we had to clean. It was not ideal. But I will say that was something I learned a lot from Loz about, was just literally working. I don't know if I can say this, but like literally just working through the shit. Like whether it was actual or like metaphorical, she just taught us as a team, like you just work through it.
If I recall correctly, and I won't name anything or locations, but I believe that's when I first met you in passing when I was visiting Lauren one time and came on board that particular boat.
Yes, baby Gemma.
Long time ago.
Yeah.
So anyway, we'll go back a little bit then. You talk a lot about having fun on the boat, and it sounds to me like it's a really good place where there's a lot of camaraderie and a lot of connections are made. But I guess on the flip side, there's probably a lot of isolation and loneliness as well. How do you navigate these challenges?
Yeah, it's so interesting because the largest boat I had been on in my career up until my final year, the largest boat I'd been on had 30 crew, and that by far was the most isolated and lonely I'd ever felt. And I always anticipated more people equals more connection equals bigger family, but it just wasn't quite the case. I was one of three on board that wasn't Aussie or Kiwi, so there was already a little bit of a barrier there. And I was also the youngest by a mile. And that was challenging. And I think for me, it was really a really cool experience being on the smaller vessels where, you maybe had 10 crew or 15 crew, because you do connect on such a deep level. And I actually heard one of your earlier podcasts. I'm not sure how long ago this was, but you said as an adult, it takes about 60 hours to make close friendship. And it really hit me because now that I'm in a total different season of life and often feel quite lonely as a business owner, I thought, no wonder I didn't necessarily always feel this on board, because that 60 hours, that's less than a week with your crew, because you live, you eat, you breathe, you work together, that you do build these bonds. And I mean, at my wedding, we had crew from every boat we've ever worked on there, because, you do build these really, really strong connections. But it's also challenging because people get to know you really quick and they see you at your best and at your worst really quick as well. So it's finding that balance of vulnerabilities. So you are a human being. You're not just a crew member on board, or you're not just the chief stew, but balancing that out with professionalism of you are the chief stew and you're managing the team. So it's definitely a balancing act, and not one that I think I ever fully mastered. It was always a learning experience for me. But yeah, I think that the connections you build, and it's probably similar in the army because you are in close quarters all the time, those are pretty unbreakable, those bonds, for sure.
Well, talk me through what your support system looked like and what some of your strategies were to get out of any sort of loneliness or those feelings of isolation at times, or even just pure unhappiness on a boat. Did you have any of those moments?
Oh, for sure. For sure. So I think my first boat, I wasn't on for too long and I ended up just resigning. I wasn't happy on board, and I just figured if I'm going to give a good run at this career, I need to find somewhere where I'm happy. And if I'm not happy at the next one, maybe this isn't just for me. And I think having that mindset of I'm going to give it a go. If it doesn't work out, it is not the end of the world. I will just try it. So I did just resign there. For me, my grandparents, I would call them like 3 or 4, I still do, call them 3 or 4 times a week and just chat with them on my lunch break. Because of time zones, they were always ahead, so I could always call them on my lunch break. And for me, that connection of someone and them being totally unrelated to yachting, and they just knew who I was outside of this weird and crazy industry where you're up at all hours of the night working, and you're going to these exclusive beach clubs that you totally can't afford, but you go anyways because you think in your head you can, and all this. That was really grounding for me, I think, to have that connection. And then as obviously time went on and I met my now husband, it was really great to be able to go in our cabin and almost like debrief from the day and be like, okay, no more work talk. Now we talk about our lives, or things like that. And I was on one vessel that was based out in Canada for about 3 years, which was amazing because I got to go home on the weekends. Like, I think I went home maybe once a month, which after being away for so many years was such a joy. And it was there that I got a personal trainer and I would go to the gym every day. And that for me became my escape for those few years, for sure, was that I think physical activity was someone that knew nothing about yachting and became a really close friend. So yeah, to combat isolation is just finding those that know you at your core outside of your current situation.
How does it feel not really having a residency anywhere when you're constantly on the move? Do you find that you don't have a sense of belonging, or did you have, really good grounded roots?
I mean, I got quite used to it. Obviously, I was away for so long, but at the end, I craved like a postcode. I craved being able to meet somebody and go, hey, I would love to have a coffee and like meet a new girlfriend. That was really odd that I wasn't able to do that. And my whole 20s, I was at sea. So I don't know, it was really weird. It's not something I ever want to experience again, but I did find that I very quickly made anywhere I went at home. Because for us, our home was our tiny cabin and we sailed everywhere around the world. And we were so grateful for that. But even just leaving the boat and going away for a month, you would make that next little place feel like a home to you. So I do find that I connect with places quite quickly and try my best to make things feel like home. Maybe too quickly though, because I don't always check the area. We lived somewhere recently and I ended up hating it. I thought I would love it because I was like, I always feel like home when I visit for a week. And 2 years in, I was like, I need to leave. I actually hate this. So you do learn to make home a feeling of home quite quickly. But I think the full sense of the word for me is always just with family. That's at the core of who you are before yachting. And that's remained the same during your time away. So as much as loads of things have changed, I think that sense of family just doesn't.
Tell me, what was one of your favorite parts of the job?
I loved my job, truly. And I think I am a people pleaser to my core. It's something I'm learning to actually be better at and not do so much anymore because it doesn't serve me as much in my life as it used to. But working within the team to continue to up level what we're offering our guests and to see them come on board their vessel that they've maybe owned, for 5 or 10 years and having them go, wow, this is amazing. Or that was one of the best trips we've ever had. Or maybe they brought on guests who are not in a financial position to own a vessel. And so for them, it is a once in a lifetime opportunity. And I always said to my team, I was like, what a joy that we get to be a part of this once in a lifetime opportunity for these people, that we get to help them create this magnificent memory. And for me, that trumped everything. It trumped the travel, the pay. It was that joy of being a part of those memories and helping build that for the guests.
There comes a point in everyone's career, I guess, where they start to go, you know what, it's time to move on. When was that moment for you?
Oh, probably when I was in the middle of a therapy session having a breakdown on board. That COVID hit and a lot of my life changed, both personally and just so much was going on that I had a few people in my life that were really sick. And I just said to myself, if I'm at sea, I can't be there for them. And I don't know how much time they have. And I can't justify being away anymore. I've been away for almost 10 years. I've missed weddings and my friends having children and something small like my sister's graduation. I remember sitting on a stool in the pantry at 3 a.m. because on that boat, I had to work 7 p.m. till 10 a.m. It was the worst shift. And I just cried because I was so sad that I couldn't see her walk across the stage, which really now in the grand scheme maybe isn't a big thing. But back then it was an okay sacrifice. But I got to the point where I just thought to myself, this isn't an okay sacrifice for me anymore. I have to show up for these people. And I need to show up for myself. The guests were my number one for years. I slept with the owner's phone in my bed in case they needed me in the middle of the night. And I did that for years. I hate to think what that kind of does to you. But anyway, so slept with that in my bed. My life was everything was second or third or fourth on the list because the first few spots were always taken by the guests, by my team on board, by my workload. And I was a very high functioning person, but I couldn't relax. I didn't know how to stop. I was uncomfortable with time off. I never fought for more time off because I didn't want to. I just wanted to work and wanted to be there and wanted all of that. And I got to the point where I realized I am exhausted. I am so tired. And I'd always said, as soon as this job stops giving me joy, I have to leave because it's A, not fair to your team, and B, it is a sacrifice. And I realized getting up in the mornings was starting to get hard. And that had never been my problem. I always got up, had a glass of water. I'm not a caffeine gal anyways. Have a glass of water. Let's rock and roll for the day, smash out 16 hours, do it again the next day. And I was waking up going, oh, I'm just so drained. I can't wake up. And yeah, and I got a therapist because I was like, this is so weird. I need you to fix me because I need to be good for the guests and help me fix this. And at some point she was like, have you ever thought about leaving? And I was like, no, I've still got 4 or 5 years left in me at least. My goal was to stay on board until one day I got pregnant, and then it would be this transition into a new time in my life. Thank God I didn't do that, because that would have been the most difficult transition. And yeah, my interior team were all leaving as well. The boat was downsizing, and I just thought, okay, I guess we'll do this. And I literally decided as I walked up the stairs to the bridge to tell the captain that I was going to leave.
It's one of those moments where the job's no longer serving you, and you feel it in so many ways, and your body's pretty much telling you, because you're literally burnt out. You're not functioning to the normal. Do you find that you kind of lose yourself just that little bit? You're like, I'm not the Gemma that I want to be.
Absolutely. In all honesty, I think it has taken me years to get that back, because for so long, I was the Gemma that the guests needed, and each guest needed a different version of me or needed something different from, the chief stew. So I would change who I was for them to ensure that I was always meeting those needs. And it's a very scary thing to show up for yourself, only for yourself, with no one else around you guiding that path. It was really weird. I've had to learn to say no. I mean, that word was not in my vocabulary. I always said to the team, there's no thing as no. We just find a solution. And it's been such a journey now of self-discovery of, okay, well, what do I actually like? What do I enjoy? It's kind of like Runaway Bride with Julia Roberts. I don't know if you know that movie, but at the end where she's like testing all these different types of eggs, because with every groom that she runs away from, they all said that she liked an omelet or scrambled eggs or whatever. And she's like, I actually don't know what I like, because I just did whatever my partner liked for me. And I always think about that on board was, okay, well, what do I actually like as a person versus what is expected of me from my captain or from the guests? And yeah, it's been a journey, that's for sure.
So you're walking up the steps to the captain, and then you say to him, I think it's time for me to leave. What's next for Gemma on this path of self-discovery, knowing that you're no longer getting this amazing pay that you're used to, which we all know is called the golden handcuffs, which is one of the major factors that many of us don't leave these jobs that pay us so well, because I've been in that position myself. And for me, it was just a tipping point where I hit this point and I went, you know what, enough's enough. The money's not worth it. And so, like yourself, I walked up the stairs and told the boss I'm leaving in 3 months. What's the next for Gemma, though, on this path of self-discovery?
Well, ironically, I left. And as I was trying to avoid a massive burnout, I just walked straight into one, because I left, and in my last few months on board, I had launched the Yacht Stew podcast. I was starting to write out loads of ideas for business to build out the Yacht Stew brand. And at that point, it was just an Instagram account that I'd been building for 5 or 6 years, of a community-based account that I wanted to turn into my exit plan. So I leave yachting, and I gave myself 48 hours to rest at my in-laws' house. And then I started recording podcast interviews, setting up meetings with people, learning about different collaborations, researching all the yachting businesses, and very quickly realized I left because I was so busy that I needed to breathe. And because I only know how to be busy, I'm now in this total new stage of life where I am filling my time to the point where I am working all hours of the day, not getting paid, just doing things to fill my time, because I was so afraid of quiet and being alone. And so that was really bizarre and not what I expected at all. I expected to leave and be refreshed and like, I'm going to walk on the beach every day. I'm going to have podcasts. I'm going to be really mindful. It was like, no, all of that went to hell in a handbasket. And I just focused on what's next. How can I be busy? How can I keep making money? I've always been a saver. So I wasn't like financially stressed at the time. I just wanted to continue building that, I guess, reservoir per se. So I wouldn't recommend anyone doing what I did. I absolutely recommend when you leave any big thing, A, don't make any plans, and B, I should have gone on a little holiday. I should have, I mean, it was probably 18 months or 2 years after that until my first vacation. Nuts. It wasn't an easy time, those first few weeks or 3 months, really.
I think the head start that you had, that you probably, I'm not sure whether you realized or not, though, is you're already building an audience for whatever your entrepreneurial journey was going to take you, which so many people think happens overnight. But as you just said, 5 or 6 years, you built this platform on socials and started to get a bit of a following there on what's Gemma doing, what's she up to. And then that brand became the Yacht Stew, which is who you are infamously known as. Okay, you burn yourself out, you do all the craziness, which, maybe that's just the mechanism that you took. Some of us take holidays and or some of us run away, and some of us, dive back in again. And, we all have those things, and we probably do all of them and in a different order. But what inspired you to take that entrepreneurial leap and go out on your own? And what gave you these ideas of the Yacht Stew Academy and TYS recruitment?
So I had always wanted to own my own business. That was never a question. It's, it used to be something I would bring up on like first dates with people, like, oh, I'm Gemma, one day I'm going to own my own business. Entrepreneur blood runs through me, So that was always something that I was very conscious of, that I wanted to work for myself, and I wanted to build something that was a reflection of my, I guess, my goals and my values. And as I left yachting, we had the podcast, and I really loved it. And that was really fun, connecting with people. Something that I noticed is we did a little training series through COVID on Instagram, and it did so well. And there were so many requests for different things. And I just took the time to look around and went, oh my gosh, this is insane. But we're literally in the middle of a global pandemic. And I'm not really seeing any online training options for all the crew who are on their vessels that aren't allowed to get off, but are desperate for education and just want to learn. And I do think with education, for me, the biggest thing is confidence. I want to teach the stews, so the stewardesses and the stewards, I want to teach them what they need to know, so that way they feel confident asking for, a higher pay or asking for more time off. That for me was key, because I never did that. I didn't know I could. Really, it wasn't something that ever truly crossed my mind, was to ask for more of a life balance, because it wasn't a priority of me. And I think things have changed, and it is now a priority. So I just thought, oh my God, training has to happen here. It was my heart and soul and joy on board was training. I loved it. I started an Instagram series, oh my gosh, in like 2016 or something, of Cocktail Fridays, where as an interior team, we would learn 5 cocktails every Friday. The deck team would come up, they would sample them, they would give us critique. And it was a really beautiful start to the weekend. It was just a really nice kind of way to get all the crew together. And I think as that grew, I was every week, then I would go, okay, Monday, we're going to teach this, Tuesday, we're going to teach this, Wednesday, this, Thursday, that, Friday, that. And then the Yacht Stew grew into this blog where, again, it was a lot of training focus. And so it was a very natural progression to go into training. It wasn't a straightforward line. As many people know, when you start your own business, it doesn't always work out. And I would say my first run at it didn't, and it just didn't align with who I was. So I went back to the core of it, rebranded as the Yacht Stew, became the sole owner of the company, because at the time I was working with someone else and it just didn't work out. And that was such a lesson for me of, you have to trust your instinct of, I really wanted to do this alone, and I should have just done it solo, and that's okay. I've learned now. So I rebranded under the Yacht Stew, under the name that I was building and growing and that I poured my heart and soul into. And we started with, I think, 5 courses. We're at 25 now, and have about 2,000 actively enrolled students at the moment. And then as the academy was growing, we were getting a lot of requests from chief stews for stews that had taken our training courses, or I was hearing about roles through friends and went, I have the perfect student for that. They've just completed this course, and I can provide them with examples of their assignments and show them how good they are in all these areas. So I started TYS recruitment, and my first hire was Eloise, who I'd hired, or interviewed, I should say, years prior for a boat. And she just wasn't quite the right fit for the boat. But I saved her on my phone, because I was like, this woman is pure joy. She has this incredible ability to connect, and I want to work with her, and I don't know how. And as soon as I decided upon opening a recruitment agency, she was my first call. She was my first hire. and she's been with me now for 2.5 years. So that was a really cool progression on that side. And now they're two very different entities. I've said for a while they're kind of like at the toddler stage where they needed a lot of love and hugs and, you know, caring for. But I do think they're definitely growing out of that, the two businesses now, which is nice.
What do you think some of the biggest challenges that you faced once you initially started your businesses?
You know, it's something I think I still struggle with now. I think there's a huge fear associated with running your own business, whereby I think you're afraid, A, of failure. I am not someone who deals well with failure. I don't know if many people do, but I have an innate, just rejection to it. So failure was really difficult. Even asking feedback from students as to how we can improve. For me, initially, I took it so personally of like, I failed them. I can't believe I didn't think to do that. That's not right, blah, blah, blah. And I've had to let that go because we are always learning and growing. It's also been incredibly eye-opening to how many different components there are to running a business that people just do not talk about. You know, like the anxiety of payroll every month is real sometimes. And some months I don't even bat an eyelid because I'm like, we thrived. And other months I'm like, man, it's a little crickets over here, but we'll get through it. And I think that for me has been quite intense. Is just I am responsible for the livelihoods of these incredible women that are on the team and showing up for them every day. And it's just, there's a lot of moving parts in two very different companies with two very different target audiences, really. But I learn every day. Some days I say to myself, I'm like, oh, I just love to not learn today. I'm tired. This is just nonstop. But every day is something new comes up, which is a blessing and also a curse in a way, because I don't know the answers to everything. And I've had to almost take a piece of humble pie and go, you are no longer the chief stew. You don't know everything. And just like you're telling your students they're always going to learn, you are as well. And you have to surround yourself with people who almost intimidate you in a way because they know so much more than you do. And that's been really helpful for me, is putting myself in almost uncomfortable situations, but in an effort to learn from everybody. That's been really, really helpful.
So Gemma, being a business owner can be quite lonely. Who do you lean on and get support from in this space in particular?
Yeah, it's been quite eye-opening, I think, as a business owner, because I went from being crew and surrounded by all these people, and I still work with crew. Like crew are our audience, and that's who we serve. But there is definitely kind of this wall, I think, of shoreside versus land-based. And the first few years were incredibly, incredibly lonely. And I also definitely self-isolated, which did not help. I now join a lot of like online groups because I think just that's where for me, that's where I found my people, is not necessarily on my doorstep. So I'm obviously a part of Sisterhood. I did several of the 90-day masterminds. Yep, that's it. So I did that. And then Laurie as well, you're obviously my mentor. So for me, that is one of the biggest supports that I have in my business, is having you on my side. But you're also, what I do love, and I think is really important for people to, if you are looking for a mentor, you don't always tell me what I want to hear, which sucks sometimes. I'm like, oh, I know what she's going to say and it's not what I want, but I know that it's the right thing. And I often know what you're going to say before you do, because it's the one thing I don't want to do, because it's the one thing that's stopping me from propelling forward, and it's scary. So I find mentorship is really important. There is another group also called Sisterhood, but very different, for female entrepreneurs within the yachting industry, by a friend of mine, Michelle. I worked with her years ago, and then we reconnected recently, or I guess a couple of years ago we reconnected. So that's been a really cool group to see people connect that way. But I also have found so much support in meeting other women who are ex-crew who now run their business. And most of them are my closest friend group now. And I did not meet any of them while on board. We all connected through social media after. And I think if if social media, for all of its ups and downs and for all the negative connotation that is associated with it sometimes, it has brought me so much friendship, because what you see is what you get with me online. I am very upfront. I sometimes come on with no makeup and I'm like, oh, I've got a really stressful day today, guys. And I'm really honest. And it's been a kind of a challenge of how do you keep it professional in case people are looking at your company, but also how do you keep it real? And that's been a bit of a balancing act, I suppose. But these women have seen my stories, and then through that, we've just connected, and now they're really, really close friends. Unfortunately, none of them live in the UK. Fortunately, a lot of them have moved into similar time zones, so that's really helpful. But I think just showing up as yourself online has a huge, it's just huge, because it gives yourself the capability of showing who you are to so many people, and then they have the opportunity of reaching out to you and kind of building and forging those relationships. So I rely on them a lot. And I used to be afraid to have friends who were not entrepreneurs or ex-crew, because I really didn't know how to connect with people outside of my very secluded life of yacht crew or business. I had nothing else in my life. I have learned over the last year how important it is to have people in my life who do not own businesses and have never worked on a boat. I need outside perspective. I need just that friendship that is not based on anything business related, for me is really important as well. So I think I've definitely found that support in various avenues, which has been awesome.
When you say you met these other ladies online, how did you actually reach out and connect with them?
Initially, one of them owns an ethical uniform company, and she wanted to collaborate with the Yacht Stew, so we met for coffee, and then we would just connect now and again, and we both happened to be going to the Dubai boat show, so we stayed together and spent 7 days laughing and giggling and watching, Australia Border Patrol at night in our hotel room, and that was an unbreakable bond that we'll have for life. A few other friends were literally just through chatting constantly on Instagram. And I'm not very active on Instagram anymore, but back when I was kind of in my, I guess, prime of being online a lot, those friendships grew just from those interactions. And then it would just so happen I would post that I was in a certain location, they would be there, we would connect. And then that was it. We had so much in common already that friendship really formed quite quickly. So it was just supporting each other from afar, as you do. I think naturally a lot of women do naturally gravitate towards supporting female ran businesses. Like, we want to see each other succeed, we want to see that growth. And so in naturally all of us supporting each other as female owned businesses, or female business owners, I should say, through that just came this like organic friendship. And yeah, it's been really cool.
Can you share a significant lesson, or even perhaps like a success story from your journey as a business owner so far?
Truly, I have learned so much. It's quite overwhelming almost to think about the last few years of growth. For me, I've had to learn to not take everything personally. I feel very deeply. I am someone who, I am an oversharer. I wear my heart on my sleeve. You've met me for an hour, every life story of mine. And I've had to learn that you cannot take things personally in business. It is not directed at you. It is, your company has to be a separate entity from the core of who you are. So much of me is in my business. And I hope that those that know me and can see the company can see a reflection of hopefully my ethos and my values within that. But at the end of the day, I have to be separate from that, because if someone, I don't know, let's say cancels their membership because they say it doesn't serve them, I can't take that as I have failed. I take that as, okay, well, let's revisit the product and let's see how we can maybe better serve everyone in our community and work on the product. So the product has to be separate from me, because otherwise you put yourself in a firing line every day, and that's incredibly taxing on you. And, employees come and employees go. And on board, I never took it personally when Stu's left, because I was always, oh, this is amazing. You're going to find a new, your dream role, or we can't promote you on board. I'm so sorry. We just don't have that role for promotion. So absolutely go and find it somewhere. I will be here. But when it's your own company, I think you do take it personally of, well, why are we not good enough? Why would you not want to stay? And I've completely reframed my mind now where that is just a new opportunity to grow. And it's this beautiful transition of, okay, well, we learned from this individual, and the next person we bring in, we're going to learn from again. And we're going to continue learning and upskilling as a business, because I refuse to accept that it's going to be stagnant, and growth is something that's so important to me. So yeah, I've just had to learn it's not personal, but it is, it's my heart. It's everything that I put into it. But at the end of the day, I've come to the conclusion that if all else fails and something happened and I lost the company, I would be okay. And I don't think a few years ago I would have. I think I was too intertwined with it that I didn't know how to function if I didn't have the opportunity to do what I do.
And you're viewing things through different lenses, right? You're looking at what's the opportunity I can actually gain from this change.
100%, 100%.
So for any other woman out there who is thinking about business herself or starting a new career, what would your advice be to her? And maybe she's fearful right now, because this is generally what I hear, particularly at the age group around my age, or between your age and my age. People are thinking about new careers. They're thinking about some sort of change. They're at a crossroad of sorts, but there's definitely the fear there for many, many different reasons. What's your advice?
I would say get really comfortable with understanding what lights your soul on fire. Make whatever it is that you want to do like an extension of that, because I think you have to have that fire in your belly, that unwavering passion for the end product, whatever that may be. And I am learning to be better at this. It's something you're helping me with, Laurie. I am not a money focused person, but I do think when you are passionate and when you are like unwavering on your determination to succeed in pursuing this passion, that you will be successful. But I think you do have to make sacrifices, absolutely. But I don't think you should ever have to sacrifice your well-being for your job. And I think people have this mindset of, I'm going to start a company and that's it. No one's going to hear from me for the next year because I'm going to live, eat, breathe, everything. And absolutely, you do have to give your all. But I don't think it's at detriment to the rest of your life, because then again, your business becomes too personal and you can't have that separation. So I always, to my girlfriends that are looking at starting a business, I'm like, what do you love? What makes you so flippin' happy that you want to tell every single person around you about? Because that's what you probably should be doing. And then get really comfortable with what scares you, which I'm working through now. Is I have a huge whiteboard. It's like a 5-foot whiteboard at the other end of my office. And I write out what scares me. And it's actually scary to write it out, to see it in front of you, because I think we internalize our fears so much. But once I know what scares me, those are often the things that are stopping you from moving forward in your business. And that's what you have to really take ownership of like, selling or being salesy or promoting my product scares me. Okay, well, what happens if I just promote? I'm probably going to sell more. I'll be able to be more financially stable. That's actually not a bad thing. So, it's kind of deconstructing those fears, I think, are really helpful.
And recognizing them, super important. I love that. And I love the whiteboard. I'm a big whiteboard fan. I like writing stuff everywhere as well.
Yeah.
So a little plug for the Yacht Stew herself as well here. We do have some people listening that would be interested in going into a new career, and maybe it's the yachting world for them. So what are some, tips and resources that you might have for those women that might be interested in coming to work in an industry that you're quite familiar with?
For sure. So the best place to start, if you go to @the Yacht Stew Academy on Instagram, we have a free guide for anyone looking to get started. It goes through the safety courses you need, like visas, all of that, because there's a lot more to it than just what we shared earlier about housekeeping and laundry. There's a lot of steps that you have to take to get started. So we have a free guide there, and all of our team are ex-crew. We have decades of experience between us. So just reach out on there if you've got any questions. We have, mini courses, we've got webinars, everything available for anyone curious. You can, check all of that out at the Yacht Stew Academy. And then alternatively, more of, I guess, my business page and a personal page, it's definitely a blend of me, is the Yacht Stew. So that's where I share what we're doing as a company, all the events we're hosting, where the heck I am in the world, because I still travel way too much. And that's all over on the Yacht Stew.
Cool. Then we're going to put all of that in our show notes as well, so people can find all your handles and your websites should they need any of that. Gemma, thank you so much for coming and joining us today. Love talking to you. Looking forward to talking to you again already.
Thank you. It's so nice. It's kind of a different dynamic for us, isn't it? It's usually me asking you all these questions. So yeah, this has been really fun. Thank you.
As we wrap up today's podcast, I wanted to just highlight some of the key takeaways from our conversation with Gemma. And one of the things that I really took away from this was that, and very impressively, how Gemma really stayed authentic to herself. She recognized when something wasn't right for her, and she moved off that first vessel. You get to this point of experiencing this burnout. It's really critical to kind of recognize the symptoms here. And I think, maybe it's time to make a change. Gemma's journey underscores the importance of having a strong network to lean on, and that's why I really ask this question, whether you're working in an isolated kind of industry or perhaps even running your own business where it's lonely also. The people you surround yourself truly matter. And perhaps the biggest lesson in business Gemma shared with us is not to take things personally. And although that is hard, it's something that she's still working on every day, and I have to agree. So thank you so much, Gemma, for sharing your insights and your experience with us. It's been an absolute pleasure, as I said. Until next time, everyone, stay true to yourself and keep building those strong connections. Thank you for joining us on the Sisterhood Collective podcast. Remember to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on any upcoming episodes. And if you want to be the first to hear what is new at Sisterhood Collective, you can find out more on our Instagram, or you can sign up to receive our weekly newsletter and let the good times continue to roll. Now it's time to turn your clear vision into bold action. I'm Laurie Drummond, your host, and until next time, keep striving to live that best life. Take care, and we'll see you soon.